Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and today Apple released iOS 18.3 Beta 2. iOS 18.3 Beta 2 is available to developers, and iOS 18.3 Public Beta 2 will be out soon, hopefully by the time you're watching this video, or usually later in the week. iOS 18.3 supports all iOS 18 supported devices and has more features than just Apple Intelligence, so I'll label those separately. This came in at 906 megabytes on my iPhone 16 Pro Max and was about the same size on the others. It was over a gigabyte on others, and some people had to fully install the OS. Along with this, Apple also released iPadOS 18.3 Beta 2, watchOS 11.3 Beta 2, along with many other updates such as macOS, tvOS, HomePodOS, and visionOS updates as well. Now, before we talk about new features, let's take a look at the build number and talk about what's new. So we'll go to Settings, then General, then About. As you can see, the build number is 22D5040D, and this particular update has some new features and changes, and the first thing is a new modem update. So if you're going from Beta 1 to Beta 2, you'll have a modem update from 1.40.02 to 1.40.03, at least on the 16 Pro Max and 16 Pro phones. You may have a different build number as far as the modem number in the other phones as well, as it varies from device to device. As far as new features, well, one of the big changes here is if we go into our calculator. So in the calculator here, something we haven't been able to do since the introduction of iOS 18 is basically tap repeating functions. So 8 times 9, hit equals, keep hitting equals, and it will continue to multiply. That's something that we don't have on the previous versions. And on iOS 18.3 Beta 1, we'll do the exact same thing, and if we continue to tap equals, it does nothing. But they've added that to this update, so that's something I know a lot of people have been waiting for. When it comes to Apple Intelligence, well, they haven't really updated anything. Apple's actually working on making the notification summaries better, but they haven't actually done that yet. They've acknowledged that there's an issue with it, and Apple actually commented to the BBC about it, saying Apple Intelligence features are in beta and we're continuously making improvements with the help of user feedback. A software update in the coming weeks will further clarify when the text being displayed is summarized provided by Apple Intelligence. So we encourage users to report a concern if they actually view an unexpected notification summary. So that's something that Apple's working on. They'll probably have that notification and hopefully a little bit better algorithm with that with iOS 18.3. Supposedly in previous code, Image Playground was supposed to have some improvements. I recently did this while I was looking for new features, and I don't know if it's improved, but it seems to be about the same. As far as something else, well, iOS 18.3 Beta 1 actually had a feature that Mark Gurman reported on, saying that there's a new option for companies who deploy iPhones through MDM or mobile device management that allows them to disable satellite communication services. So it's designed for defense and space agencies who don't want employees tapping into it. So that's something that can be turned off, at least in Beta 1 and probably Beta 2 as well. Now, others that are using T-Mobile have reported that they're looking for the option, if they're beta testing the satellite connectivity feature to use cellular, that they may have an option. I don't see that here, and I looked for it, and I'm actually on T-Mobile. So let me know if you're seeing that in the comments below. As far as other new features, well, there's no battery intelligence, which means basically when you plug in the phone, lock the phone, it will tell you how much time there is left to charge. That was in early code previously, and for whatever reason, it hasn't been enabled just yet, so maybe we'll see that in a future update. We also had robot vacuum support in a previous update, and as far as other new features, there's no new iPhone 15 wallpaper or anything else. This is a pretty sparse update, but they did fix some issues. Before we talk about things Apple has resolved in this update and fixes that they've implemented for bugs and additional bugs, Apple today announced the Swift Developer Challenge. If we go to their website, you'll see Swift Student Challenge. Apple is proud to support and uplift the next generation of developers, creators, and entrepreneurs with the Swift Student Challenge. The submissions will be open for 3 weeks starting on February 3rd, 2025. This typically goes until usually around WWDC or so, and I'll link this in the description if you're interested in looking into it or participating. Now, as far as things Apple has fixed this time around, well, on their public-facing website, the release notes, if we go into those, give it a second to load, and here we actually have a few things they've resolved. For example, Genmoji, they fixed a personalized Genmoji might not generate without selecting a different person first. They've also resolved issues with HealthKit, where HealthKit authorizations granted by the user for a data type might not persist, resulting in the app being unable to access data and potentially prompt the user again for authorization. And you'll see the third thing they fixed has to do with writing tools, where they fixed an issue for third-party apps which adopted Writing Tools API on iOS. If the first responder is not a UI view, it will not be able to use the complete inline experience. As far as anything else we've seen that they've resolved, well, if we take a look at the notifications, they've fixed the issue where we had light mode and dark mode icons even if you had one or the other set. So they've definitely fixed that this time around. However, as far as remaining bugs, while the home screen saturation bug is still there, at least in the beta, it seemed to be resolved for me in iOS 18.2.1, but after posting the video, some people say it's still there. I don't see it on the public release, but I do see it on this beta. So if we go here, swipe home, it sort of oversaturates itself. You can see this on very saturated wallpaper. As far as the next releases, iOS 18.3 Beta 3 could be as soon as next week. We don't know if we're yet on a bi-weekly cycle or if we're on a weekly cycle of releases, but we could see it as soon as the next week with the 13th, 14th, or 15th, usually between Monday and Wednesday, or the following week between the 20th and 22nd. Again, we don't know this 100% until it's released, but if Apple's planning to do what it did last year, we'll probably see it next week with an RC soon after that. Maybe we'll have a final release by the end of the month or possibly early next month. Again, we don't know that 100%, and we don't know if we'll have any additional updates, such as iOS 18.2.2 or anything else. But at this point, that's what we expect for releases. When it comes to overall performance, well, this generally feels pretty smooth. Not really any different than the other one. However, there's less lag when scrolling. ProMotion looks good. It seems like apps are opening nice and quickly without lag. I don't see a touch issue here. I'm on some Wi-Fi that seems to be a little bit slow, and you'll see we also have a little bit of a splash screen or pop-up here that says search the way you talk. We can basically use natural language throughout the OS, and we've seen this throughout things such as not just music, but podcasts, photos, and much more. So basically it's just using Siri, it seems. So overall, it seems pretty simple to do with TV and more. As far as the overall heat, well, right after installing it, it cooled down nice and quickly. No real issues there. So that's great to see. And when it comes to battery life, I'm not sure what battery life is like just yet, as it takes a few days to know that. And we'll talk about that in detail in the weekend follow-up video. But if we take a look at battery health, this is my main phone. I have 100% capacity with 97 cycles. And if we take a look at the battery life, since I'm at CES this week, yesterday I've used this heavily. I had 100% usage at only 3 hours and 55 minutes of screen active time, 3 hours and 29 minutes of screen idle time. The day before was about the same amount of usage, but at half the battery. Today, so far, I have 2 hours and 40 minutes of screen active time, and I'm down to 64%. So far it's doing a little bit better. We'll have to wait and see, give it a few days and see what it's like. As far as the overall storage, well, again, if we go into our settings, go to General, and then iPhone Storage, give it a second to load here. Once it loads, scroll to the bottom, and you'll see here that it's using 18.26 gigabytes. So still using quite a bit using iOS, Apple Intelligence, and some other data. 11.97 gigabytes for iOS, Apple Intelligence is 6.28. So it's looking like it's showing the correct update, but it's still a fairly large update. Overall, though, the system data goes up and down. You can see it just changed there. Nothing to worry about, but overall it will go up and down. So if you're wondering if you should install iOS 18.3 Beta 2, well, definitely if you're on Beta 1, install it. However, if you just installed iOS 18.2.1, I wouldn't upgrade to this version because this is a beta. 18.2.1 should probably be more stable. Again, we'll talk about that more in the weekend follow-up video. As far as the overall benchmarks, I did run those on Geekbench 6. It scored 3,454 for single-core, 8,613 for multi-core. Compared to what we had before, it's about the same, right in the same margin of error, a little bit lower, sometimes a little bit higher. It just depends which one you're looking at, but in general, it's about the same as Beta 1, so I'm not really seeing any significant difference there. As far as anything else, well, this looks like it's a pretty small update. Hopefully with Beta 3 or whenever the public release is, we'll see some updates to Siri, some additional notes with more information, something along those lines, as a major update should have probably a little bit more in it, and maybe they're just not ready for it yet in the public beta, or at least a developer in public betas. So hopefully we'll see that very soon. If you've found anything else, though, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. And if you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, of course, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already, though, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.